Okay, it's war on Ukraine, Ukraine versus Russia. What's going on? Well, just give me 1 second. See.
There was a theme of green, and that's on purpose because of the whole food. So he said he prefers stand-up shower. So the two that are available, the one that has the obstructor, the two that have the obstructed view, does that bother you?
Okay, I'm back. Just kind of went away for a minute, trying to get some things organized. So, this war on Ukraine, I'm making this video because I basically woke up and found out that the dollar to naira, the naira is devalued almost like 50%. Because today I found out that the naira rate to Russia to sorry, the dollar naira rate to Russia to dollar is 710 naira to $1. And I was shocked, like, whoa, what is going on here? And I'm wondering because my expectation was that okay, the naira would gain value due to the war that's going on in Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia, because of course the price of oil eventually obviously went up. So Nigeria being an oil producing country means that they will actually start to gain. Sell their oil in a higher on the global market on a higher price, and that means they will earn more revenue, which translate that the naira will now gain value, against the dollar. But unfortunately, I really don't understand what's going on because today, I woke up to find out that value, the naira went from five, is it 580 to $1 to 710 to $1. So I don't understand what's going on. And this war has been going on for this one's going on for a couple of months now, and God knows when it's going to end. And the way it's been affecting everybody, it's just it's not making a whole lot of sense. It's a kind of war. People call it proxy war, but it is a proxy war. But God knows what it's really all about, because it's not looking like Russia is going to lose anytime soon. And lose at all. And also not looking like Ukraine is going to lose anytime soon. So I mean, this war, no one really understand what the heck is really all about. I mean, people initially everybody thought it's just a war of NATO trying to gain ground in Eastern Europe, so against towards Russia. And well, I mean, we understand the history of the Cold War. We know what the Cold War has been all about. NATO versus the Soviets. NATO, I mean, which is now known as NATO versus Russia. We understand that, but is it that important to gain ground towards Russia? I mean, the fact that the I mean, the kind of price that we're all paying right now, I mean, does it make any sense at all? Like, just for the sake of gaining ground towards Russia, for the sake of NATO gaining ground, because I really don't see what Ukraine has to benefit the Western countries. I don't know, other than just gaining ground towards moving NATO eastward. I don't see any other reason why they should be. I mean, NATO should be trying to gain ground. I mean, have Ukraine join NATO. So, I mean, the price that we're all paying is the fact that we're all paying this price economically. I mean, to me, I don't see it as something that makes sense at all. It's not making sense. I mean, I own a business, and right now I own a supply chain. It's just affecting my business. Like things I have to order now. It's just all. I mean, the price of oil has gone up, both in the U.S. and globally. Price of food. I mean, inflation is just rising. So this war, I don't understand. And for countries like Africa, I mean, I would expect that they would take advantage of the war situation, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like they have their thinking hats on their head to know how to I mean, use what's going on to their advantage. Because to me, I mean, I think the leaders Africa had in the '60s during the Cold War were more intelligent because during the Cold War in the '60s, I can remember. I mean, history shows that African countries were actually benefiting from that situation because what they were doing was kind of like pinning both sides, taking advantage of both sides of the conflict, taking advantage of both the West and the East, getting the best out of the trade, out of the situation economically. Well, now present day leaders, I don't know the kind of brain they have, but these guys, I mean, I don't know what it is. They're not taking advantage of it because you have Russia and China on one end, and then you have the U.S. and the Western Europeans, well, known as NATO, on the other end. And these are the two, I mean, economic power of the world. So if they're having conflicts, it gives those smaller countries, especially African countries, the advantage. You play, all you have to do is play the game of divide and conquer. But unfortunately, I don't know what these African leaders are doing these days, because it doesn't look like this whole situation is even favoring them or in any shape or form. But maybe in the long run, it may. Maybe it's too early to see. God knows. But for now, I mean, the way things is looking doesn't look like anyone is benefiting. Anyone is getting enjoying. I mean, taking advantage or benefiting. Neither the Russians nor the West are even benefiting because even the Western countries they're suffering inflation despite all the sanctions on Russia. Russia themselves, I mean, Russia is playing its own sanction game against against the Western countries, and they're all playing this economic war against each other right now. Russia is using the gas supply it provides to Europe, and kind of using that in a way, to manipulate and punish the Western European countries. Then the United States, we think we actually, I mean, claim it all. In the United States, there's inflation. In the U.S. right now, it's trying to play smart, play games, visiting countries like India, to trying to gain their support. Countries like what they call it, countries like Saudi Arabia. And I'm like, okay, before you started the war, why didn't you? put all these things, all these calculations in place before starting the war. So now in the middle of the war is when you want to start doing, making alliance with all these countries. So this whole thing is just not making too much sense. It's not making a whole lot of sense at all. And who knows? Well, these countries, we know how they operate. Sometimes they be making one move, or what they're actually trying to do is something that we all can't see. Catching us on the blind side. So we'll see how this played out. We'll see how it goes. Time will tell. Well, it's been several months now. I didn't think it was going to last this long. But every day I look at the news, it's almost like it's just the beginning. War is never, war is never a good thing. War doesn't benefit anybody at all. Vladimir Putin of Russia. I will assume he's a very clever man, but now another thing that's jumping is God knows if he's really going to jump off is the um, China Taiwan situation. It's looking like that's also about to escalate into a all-out war. But who knows? This whole thing, man. I hope it doesn't escalate into World War III. I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. China is an emerging power. It's an emerging superpower, and it's predicted in a couple of years that China will become an established superpower, economic superpower like the United States. And we all know what that means. Situation where you have two established. I don't think it's ever happened in human history where two countries where you have two established superpowers. It's never happened. There's always been one established superpower, and you always have like rising power behind the established superpowers. And whenever the rising power is catching up to the established superpower, it always leads to a war. History tells. We also World War II, how it began. England was the established economic superpower at that time. Then you had, I guess, France was challenging, was an emerging established superpower at that time. Well, everybody was predicting that if there was going to be a war in Europe, it was going to be between France and England. Well, it turned out to end up being a war between Germany and France, Germany versus France and England. So things are unpredictable. This war started between Russia and NATO, and everybody's looking at it like, okay, this is going to be a war between Russia and NATO. But now we won't be surprised because it looks like history is playing itself out. It might end up just being war between U.S. and China. Is what I'm predicting. It might just end up being war that's actually going to end up being between U.S. and China, or NATO versus China. Because China, actually, to me, is a country I see to be the biggest threat to the Western countries, and not Russia at all. Russia may be military threats, but as far as economic threats, to me, it's China has always been the economic threat. And when the war started in Ukraine, obviously we know the West had a lot to play with it, to play in that situation. But I was surprised because I'm thinking, okay, what's the point? Well, why escalate trouble with Russia? Russia isn't that. it's not that much of a threat economically, But you know, looking at the way things is playing out right now, it looks like China may end up being the country that will end up with this Taiwan um, China situation is happening where China has drawn their line with the West. Listen, if you involve yourself in Taiwan, between the issue between China and Taiwan, it will be something that will not be accepted. So, what is going on? Who's at fault? Who's right? Who's wrong? Is it the West? Is it the East? When we look at it, China is rising. China poses huge economic threats to the United States and Europe. Now, is China doing anything wrong? Of course not. China is not doing anything illegal. China is operating, I mean, in accordance to the global um, global order, international trade order, international laws. So, what? I mean, how can we point finger at China and say China is doing something wrong or something it needs to correct? So this is all like a catch-22, to be honest. The U.S. doesn't want to lose its position. China wants to rise. The U.S. has been doing all it can economically. Trade. I mean, they've been going back and forth with the trade wars. It looks like they're really not winning this trade war against China. And what's the other alternative to prevent China from, becoming this established superpower or winning this economic war? Is actual maybe physical conflict. And is that what we all want? I'm not sure about that, man, because that looks like it's going to be a catastrophe, to be honest. Because if World War III is going to jump off right now, to be honest, it's likely going to be a nuclear war. It's definitely going to be a nuclear war. Because these countries, they have any direct conflict with each other. There's no way no more, they're not going to push the buttons. Other ways of fighting is proxy wars. And these proxy wars nowadays, it's really not as effective. I don't think it's something that is really effective like it used to be back in the days, because most of these third world countries, other developing countries, they're working up themselves. Most of them really are not willing to allow their territories to be used for proxy wars anymore, like it used to, like they did in the 60s and 70s, 80s. These new nations are not really going to be they're not willing to allow their territories to be used for proxy wars between superpowers. So the idea of proxy war for economic gain, I don't know if that's a good option. That's an option for the Western nations or no, the Eastern Bloc, the Chinese and the Russians. Africa, well, present day we have a lot of brilliant Africans on the continent. They actually a lot of brilliant Africans on the continent that actually know how to reason, understand global geopolitics. But the only thing about Africa right now is just leadership. The leadership is not as strong. It's not really leadership you can count on. A lot of these African leaders are still very well compromised. And some of them are waking up. And some are just stay, acting like puppets. So we'll see how it plays out. But I want to be optimistic that the African countries will get it right. It will because there's a lot of very brilliant, intelligent Africans today, very highly educated Africans that work in African parliaments and governments. So my hope is, maybe these people can be good advisors to the head of states, respective head of states on the continent, and give them good advice on how to go about this whole conflict and how to take advantage of the situation where Africa can actually benefit from the situation and not lose from the situation, because there's no reason why Africa shouldn't be benefiting from two superpowers in conflicts. We saw it in the 60s, we saw it in the 70s, during the Soviet era, the Nigerian, during the Cold War in the 70s. I remember very well that the Nigerian naira became even stronger than the dollar. Nigerian naira was stronger than the US dollar in the 70s. And it was due to the Cold War situation where Nigeria was able to take advantage of the situation. And even I could remember there was a Arab Israeli war in the 70s as well. The Arab Israeli war, where the Arab nations were refusing to supply uh, oil and gas to the United States and the Western countries. And US had to turn to Nigeria for supply. And I mean, Nigeria became very rich, man. Things, I mean, people, that was the best, I can say, the greatest era in African economic history, to be honest. So today we have similar situation where Russia right now is cutting off supply to Europe as a energy demand. And I don't know what these leaders and the leader in Nigeria, I don't know what they're doing, because I was expecting the naira to gain ground against the dollar when this whole conflict began. And unfortunately, what I'm saying is the opposite. I mean, just a month ago, a couple of months ago, the naira was just four, was it 400 to the dollar. Today is seven, was it seven something, 760, whatever, to the dollar. So I don't know how that makes sense at all. I don't understand. I don't see how that makes sense. Well, many Africans, I think, what they need to start doing is putting their genius minds together and start figuring ways to start manufacturing and be productive. Because to me, productivity is the key to any economic advancements. Without productivity, I mean, there's no way you can really compete very well, against anybody else. We need to start figuring out to start produce things that we consume, and rather than just consuming things that we don't produce. And I don't know why we haven't figured that out. Many Africans always expect that it's their government have to do the production, and not realizing that actually in these countries, advanced countries, it's not their governments that are doing the production, actually the productive force, productive forces, is actually the companies and corporations of those countries. The regular American, the regular Europeans are the ones that are building companies and coming up with, innovations and inventions, and you know, creating products and having the economy advance. Well, in the case of Africa, I don't know what it is. A lot of us going to school, we acquire education, we have skills, we have the brain, but unfortunately, there's no much productions going on the continent. I wonder what the reasons are. If anyone can tell me, I don't know. But I just think it's high time that brilliant Africans, best of the minds on the continent, start coming together by linking up and start figuring how to solve problems of the continents or respective countries, or just change their mindsets. Because to me, I think it's the way the people reason that's really causing, that's not preventing them from actually advancing. To be honest, it's like the great philosophers would say: if you want to change your position in life, you just have to change the way you think. You have to change your reasoning, change the way you reason, the way you approach situations, the way you approach things. So I think all the brilliant Africans, people that are very intelligent, is to start figuring ways to change their mindsets, start applying their gift to the advancements of their homeland. And another thing that I see that's really affecting the continent is this massive brain drain, with a lot of graduates, a lot of intellectuals, a lot of philanthropists. I won't say philanthropists, but I'll say a lot of skilled Africans are just kind of like fleeing the continent for the greener pastures, for more economic opportunity in advanced countries, more high paying, high income nations, and we can't blame anybody for that. But at the same time, we also seeing a lot of brain gain because it's not only the skills that are fleeing, also the unskilled are also leaving to go acquire skills in other continents, in other nations, and becoming skilled people. So in the long run, if they can all like acquire these skills and move back to the continent, that would translate to the brain gain for the continents. So brain gain is something positive for the continents, which eventually, if I want to be pessimistic, if I want to be optimistic, I would say will be end up being the case. I believe a lot of Africans that acquire skills and brain will take their brain back to the homeland and begin to produce for the homeland and advance the economy of the continent. Now, let me talk about this guy, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. Like this guy, man, I don't know. I don't know what he's up to be honest, because many people ask, why would you go to war? Why would you, I mean, go to war with Russia? Knowing that you don't have what it takes to actually invade Russia or to attack Russia or to win a war against Russia, and knowing that you creating the risk of your country being getting a nuclear attack. So I mean, what is the guy thinking? In the beginning, we were thinking, okay, maybe, well, you're getting a lot of support from the West, but maybe when Russia comes in, they're going to get a surprise attack and they will pull out and we abandon the war. But it's not what we're saying. It's almost like the country is just being flattened. I mean, the infrastructure is being blown apart. I mean, so far, the destructions that we've seen so far, it's looking like it's going to take decades to rebuild. So, what's the point of this whole war? What's the end run or end game? Is he just to join NATO, to become a part of NATO? And when you do become part of NATO, what is the benefit of becoming part of NATO? Or get a nuclear bomb in your country to facing Russia, even make your country even in more danger because if they start moving nuclear bombs into your country to point at Russia, it means that Russia will start pointing nuclear bomb at your country, nuclear weapons at your country. So I don't get it. Or is it for the economic gain, economic benefits to be part of NATO? And well, I don't know. But this whole thing is just not making a whole lot of sense. It's not making a lot of sense at all. As I personally, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care about these. I don't care about what happens between European countries or whatever wars goes on between them. I don't really care. Only reason I will care is just the way it affects the rest of the world. That's the only reason I will care. Proxy war. Those of us from the continent, we've had to deal with that a lot, man. Proxy war. We saw it went on the continent for so long. We saw the proxy war in Angola. We saw it in many countries in Africa. Now it looks like something is not going on in Europe. So proxy war. I just hope this proxy war doesn't go back to the continent like it used to back in the days. Africa was always a civil war from left and right. But the African countries now, I think they're coming together now. They've learned from the past, and I think they are now putting things in place. Though what I do see on the continent lately has been more of like insurgency. Many are accusing this insurgency on the Western countries like France. They have their military base all around the Francophone countries. Insurgency, where no one knows who these enemies are. We just call them terrorists. And they harm themselves. They just shoot off villages and shoot up infrastructures. And at the end of the day, you wonder, okay, what is this all about? Just causing destruction all over the place. So African countries have to figure out how to deal with the insurgencies, man. Northern Nigeria has been dealing with insurgents for insurgency for like almost 10 years now, or if not even over 10 years, and the leaders haven't figured out a way to, you know, quench it, put a stop to it. But hopefully one day, somebody will come up with a strategy. Another thing I want to talk about is the African Union. African Union, to me, I, yeah, it has the potential of becoming a very strong union, but unfortunately, it's still very compromised, man. Still very, very compromised. Because I really don't see any union among these Africans, to be honest. I don't see any union among the countries, Because if there's really a union, you'll be hearing all these bull crap about France and all these countries forcefully pu- putting military bases all over the place, francophone countries and some anglophone countries, which doesn't make any sense at all. I just hope it's African countries. To me, the day I will begin to take a African Union seriously is the day there will be an African Union military where they form one army. That's the day I begin to say, okay, African Union actually is a union. They've been discussing economic union, forming one trading bloc for the past how many years now? Yet we don't see anything. They will just talk. Another example was ECOWAS when they were talking about um, creating an eco currency. All they did was just talk. At the end of the day, did they? At the end of the day, did they? At the end of the day, did they? I mean, what happens? Right? The whole project was hijacked by France. So I don't understand this, African countries, man. And then you have the United Nations. I don't even know what African countries are doing in the United Nations. There's no single African country as part of the Security Council. So what's the point of being a member of the United Nations when you don't have a representative on the Security Council? The only five members of the Security Council. You have the United States, UK, Russia, France, and China. So you have one country from the North American continent in the Security Council. You have one country from Asia from the Security Council. And then you have three countries from Europe in the Security Council. And not a single country from South America and Africa, or even Caribbean countries. It's a member of the Security Council. Doesn't make any sense to me. So you live in a world where you're part of an organization where Asia, North America, and Europe dictates for the rest of the world. I don't know. I don't get it, man. It's not making that doesn't make sense at all. Well, African nations got to get it together, man. It's a matter of time. But I do see the next generation of Africans actually, you know, doing things a little bit differently from these previous generation. It's just don't I don't understand what they're doing. But I'm gonna get off now and Hopefully next time I'll make more videos about this situation that's going on. And thanks. God bless. Until next time. Peace.